So yeah, on that note, Tony, as I mentioned, he is Ginny's brother. So like Seek is a family affair, you guys. We're a small organization.
It's our new club.
Did I say you're my best brother? I can't. I have 4 brothers. I'll get beat up.
Yeah, you do have too many.
I secretly tell all of them that they're my favorite uncle, but
and we all believe it.
So we're really lucky to have Tony with us, because not only is he a family member who's also passionate about our mission, he worked with the New York State Thruway Authority for I don't know how long, forever, pretty much.
28 years there, governor's office for 5 years.
Yeah.
And then I worked in nonprofits before that.
Yeah. So he's our legislative guy, and he's been spearheading our effort to pass legislation in New York. So he's going to talk a little bit about that now.
Okay, that sounds good. What I'm going to do is talk about where we began our effort, then get into how we focused in on New York State and what we're doing there. And then lastly, want to talk a little bit about how people out there can really help us. And again, we appreciate everybody who's on tonight and everybody who's donated. Couldn't do this without all of you. So keep up the good work. We appreciate it. But, when we first began our effort to develop legislation, I talked to Jenny, and one of the things that I said, somebody who I had worked with for over 30 years, a guy by the name of Paul Tonko, who used to be a state legislator and then moved into the Federal House of Representatives. And, we set up a meeting with Paul Tonko. And one of the things we said is, given our experience with the self-help industry, one of the things that concerns us is there's no national standards to protect people, that anybody without a license can go in there and do anything, and there's nothing regulating them or holding them accountable, and that we thought legislation would help. So, initially when we talked to Paul, we were looking at, the federal level, and that's where we wanted to start because we figured it'd be a lot less work starting there. Paul, who's a very great guy and really knows his stuff, and I had worked with him years ago when I worked for a nonprofit in Schenectady, New York, and he said to us, to tell you the truth, getting some federal legislation would be a good idea, but it's probably not your first step. He basically said, if you want regulation started, you're better off starting on the state level, because then when you go to the federal level, it might, have more impact on everybody who's going to be looking at what you're doing. So he suggested, having been in the House of Representatives in New York State, that we start with state legislators and try to get something passed there. So we said fine. So from there, we went to the state, and Ginny spoke with James Skofis, who's more of a downstate person who was for the idea. And there was also another assemblywoman named Sandy Gallup, who was also interested. And they were all for it, and they were putting together a piece of legislation that was going to be done through the House of Representatives. And then what interestingly happened was James Skofis ended up running for the state Senate as opposed to as the House of Representatives, and he won. So what ended up happening was we had already had some legislation drafted, and I'll talk about that in a second and what that does. But it ended up, the number changed from an assembly bill to a Senate bill. And at that time, it was it was S-4846 was the bill number. And that was a draft. And it was sent to Sandy Gallup, who's still in the assembly, to sign off on. What's happened more recently is the bill that Scofus had submitted got sent to the Senate Consumer Protection Committee, which is, part of the process, and especially consumer protection really makes sense for it to, go to that group. And they made some slight changes to the bill, and the bill's now known as S4846B. Originally, the first piece of legislation got changed from S4846 to S4846A. And so one of the things that's become real apparent is the numbers change over time.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So let me pause a little bit there.
And that's part of what has happened here. Tony has done a great job being very tenacious, talking to the legislators to try to push this forward. What's important about this legislation and what's in it is... that's
what I was just about to talk about, Jen.
Okay.
What's in it is something that holds people who are non-licensed self-help providers who are providing, either offering financial, personal, or educational growth as part of their service they're delivering. And what this legislation tries to do is hold them accountable if that's what they're considered. The legislation directs practitioners to register with the Department of State in New York State. And what they have to do when they register is they have to describe in detail what the services they're providing really are. And they also have to provide the potential risks that people run when they get into those services, and get into the whole issue of what their management protection plan really is to prevent problems from occurring. So, for example, if it is something that's going to cause extreme stress to individuals, something along those lines, have a psychologist on hand that can work with people and that kind of thing. So that the provider's held accountable if they're going to do anything that could be risky to take care of their clients. So, that's what's real important. And again, the Consumer Protection Committee took care of changing some of the language, which I think improved the bill. And so that's kind of where we're at right now. Now, last time I talked to anybody in the Consumer Protection Committee, they told me this bill probably won't be moved until, they said, at the earliest middle of January, possibly through March, someplace in that area. So, the last thing I said I would talk about is how you all can help, and that's going to be critically important. And currently, what's important to us is that anybody who can reach out to their state senators, to their assembly members, and seek support from both houses within the state legislature for S4846B, which is on our website. And I'll ask Jean to talk about our website in a little while. Also on the website, we have a copy of our briefing notes, which would be a good thing to read before you called anybody, because it provides really good background on what it is we're trying to accomplish, why we're trying to accomplish it, and key points that you need to stress with anybody you're trying to influence to back this legislation. So that's kind of my spiel. Jean, I don't know if you wanted to say anything about the website and what's there that they can look at, or you mentioned to me the Consumer Protection Committee you knew something about you might want to talk about.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I'll mention on our website, like you said, we have all of the information about, the bill itself and what exactly it involves. I found when I was looking at it the other day, I found, the bill itself has its own page. And then you can fill out a form to ask your local assembly members to support it, to support it. So I have those links up there on the website under the legislation section. And for sure, if people who live in New York, if you go do that now, full time, that is very helpful. And when it really comes time to push, you'll hear from us for sure.
Yeah, exactly. And my guess is any updates with the bill, if the number does change again, we'll make sure we put it up there so that everybody would have access to it as well. So, so whatever anybody can do to help support this effort. This is a tough thing. And as Ginny talked about earlier, and Glenn even talked about a little bit, is sometimes people aren't comfortable talking about this stuff, who have gone through getting abused by self-help providers. And so it's kind of important we get as many people as we can to talk about it and to bring it to center stage, because that's going to be critically important.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
All right. Thank you so much, Tony, for
you're welcome.
About this, and most importantly, for all of your efforts.
Good. Thank you.
Yeah.